right, moving on to black, we've got Corrupted Conviction for our first one. It's a 1-drop instant. As an additional cost to cast the spell, sack a creature, draw 2 cards.
It's Village Rites.
It is Village Rites. That being said, is Village Rites good in this format?
Again, I think the black-red deck in this format is real. Like, you have enough random things that you can sack to it. Granted, this doesn't let you sack an artifact, which is a little bit sad. I guess it's weird. Probably for the best for Constructed, just because everything in Constructed makes treasure and food and stuff. So, like, maybe getting to double cycle those is unreasonable. But I feel like there's enough random things. Even if you gotta just flip an incubator, like, it's probably not the end of the world.
Yeah, I'm never playing more than like one of this.
Yeah, no, I think you max out at 1. It's probably a C. And it is an instant, right? So, like, it lets you cash out when your opponent tries to aim a removal spell at something. So it has use cases, but it's not.
That's true. I like it more now that you said that. I'm gonna go with C-.
Fair enough. We've got Ichor Drinker, single black for a 1/1 Phyrexian vampire with lifelink, and black, exile it from your graveyard, incubate 2, activate only as a sorcery. So black is not one of the colors that really wants to do a whole lot of backup shenanigans. So you'll get the option in certain decks. Otherwise, I would be like, hell yeah, let's put 1/1 counters on this baby and go to town. A 1/1 lifelinker is exactly what I want to do with that. It reminds me a little bit of the stupid frog from Strixhaven, which is the real card name for it. It's not. Which was just a 1/1 menace for 1 that you could like exile out of your graveyard to scry later or something.
Yeah.
This gives you a little bit of value out of the graveyard later. It lets you put a body down early. How important is putting down a body early in this format? Probably less important than a couple of the previous formats that we've had. But a 1/1 lifelinker that dies and eventually makes another 2/2, I really don't mind this at all, actually. Like,
yeah, I think it's okay.
I think C is where I'm landing on it.
C's a little high for me, honestly. I do like that it's 2 Phyrexian bodies. Yeah. A Phyrexian deck that isn't nothing.
Right.
I'm gonna take a C-. I think it's playable. I don't think you're super excited about it, but you know, it's also you could technically put this in the blue-black deck, and I milled it. I still get some value out of it.
Yeah,
and I don't hate that.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all.
That's probably not its best case scenario. The best case scenario is probably in the Phyrexian deck.
I also think like if you gotta play this on 1 and then like eventually go to chump blocks with it, sack it to Corrupted Conviction.
True.
That's not like the worst play pattern in the world.
No,
which is glowing praise, but
yeah. All right, moving on. We got Mirrodin Avenged, easily the most raw art in the set. 1 black instant at common. Destroy target creature that was dealt damage this turn, draw a card.
This is another functional reprint.
Yeah, a functional reprint of a card I'm not going to cast.
You Are Already Dead, the meme card from Kamigawa.
I think that this effect is never good. I don't think I've ever effectively like seen a card that makes this effect feel like, oh yes, I did it.
So the way I remember it playing in Kamigawa was that technically it was playable, but it was really hard to find space in your deck for it. Like, but when you played it, you weren't generally like super upset about it or anything. Like, situations come up. It's gonna be tough because you're not usually getting a creature that you really care about, right? Like, you're gonna hit some random thing and just cash in while you have the option that something's been marked with damage. I don't think I can go above C-. D+ is probably where I'm actually landing for now. I think you have enough actual removal options in this format where you're not going to need to rely on it very often.
Agreed. I'm going to call it a D- trending towards F.
Dang.
I don't think you're playing the spell, personally.
Well, are you playing Scornblade Berserker, the single black 0/1 human berserker at uncommon with backup 1, and pay 1, sack this creature, draw a card?
Probably. That's weird. That's a weird card.
Yeah.
Because why would I want to give my creature that effect? Because even doesn't the arrest like not let your creature's abilities work?
Yeah, Realm Breakers blah, 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 does take away your activated abilities.
So then this wouldn't even be a factor.
I mean, having the 1... Yeah, so you don't get to give that ability to a creature. Actually, let me think about this for a second. Because I think timestamps, actually.
Well, it says its activated abilities can't be activated.
Oh, no, you're right. It doesn't just lose all abilities. You're right. So, yeah, in that case, then, like, no, you're not going to be able to take a pacifism creature and suddenly cash it in with
You'll be able to do the one that makes it an O2, because that says lose all abilities.
Yeah. I think the big thing that you get here, actually, is that you get to put the 1/1 counter on something, and then you get to sack this one immediately.
True.
Or, like, keep it around again as a chump blocker and cash it in later. Or maybe use it as fodder for the black-red uncommon. C is about as high as I think I'm willing to go on this card, unless there's some interaction that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, I'll go C-, but I want to be proved wrong because this seems very interesting.
Yeah.
And at uncommon, it seems really intentionally like we had to put it at uncommon because it does this.
Yeah.
What that is, I don't know yet, but I'm looking forward to it. All right, next up, we got Aetherblade Agent. That's 1 and a black for a human rogue with Death Touch. It's at common. It's a 1/1. And you can pay 4 and a blue Phyrexian mana to transform it into Gitaxian Mindstinger. It's a Phyrexian rogue, 3/3 with Death Touch. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player or a battle, draw a card. That's pretty good.
I love this card.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I like cheap Death Touchers. They interact favorably and block things well. This flips into a real threat that your opponent still can't block well. And it'll draw you cards if your opponent's allowing it to get through. I think this card is sweet, and I want to play as many of them as I can.
So are you gonna, or you like want to?
I want to.
Okay.
I mean, I'm probably gonna too, right? Like how many copies of a 2-mana 1/1 Death Touch do you have to play before you start really noticing diminishing returns on that, right? Like probably enough where I'm realistically not getting my grubby little hands on that many anyway. Like if I get to the point where I get a full play set, then like even that's probably still fine. It's not great, but like it's playable.
Yeah, I think that the flip might be it's a little overcosted, but you still get a 3/3 Death Touch on the other end.
Yeah,
that's probably going to draw you a card. So I like this thing. I think it's gosh, do I want to say C+ on this?
I want to say C+.
Let's say C+ on it. Let's go crazy.
C+ on this.
All right.
Next up, you've got Bladed Battle Fan. 1 and a black for an equipment with flash. When it enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. That creature gains indestructible until end of turn. Equipped creature gets +1/+0, and it equips for 1.
Weird. So weird. Because it's like this could have been an aura, but let's just make it stick around after.
Yeah.
An extra point of power just randomly later. I think this is okay. I don't love it. Because it does its thing. You're indestructible. You saved yourself, and then you get +1/+0 on anything for the rest of the game, pretty much. It's like a D, I think. I don't think you should waste a slot on this. But it's cool. I like the design.
D+ is probably where I'd land. You usually are able to run maybe one of this type of effect, the kind of like, again, like we were saying with some of the like dive down type effects. Cheap instant speed things that stop removal. And this doesn't even stop all removal. Because it doesn't give hexproof or anything. So D+ is about as high as I'm willing to go for it.
Okay. Let's move on to Blight Reaper Thallid. This guy is awesome. 1 and a black for a fungus. He's an uncommon 2/2. You pay 3 and a green Phyrexian to transform him into Blight Sower Thallid. It's a Phyrexian fungus 3/3. When this creature transforms into Blight Sower Thallid or dies, you make a 1/1 green Phyrexian Saproling creature token. You hate to see the Saproling turned into a Phyrexian. This is one of my favorite arts in the set. So it's a bear that potentially the turn after, you can turn it into a 3/3 that makes a 1/1.
And then makes another 1/1 at some point in the indeterminate future. Because it's when it dies as well, right?
Yeah. I'm into this. I think it's a clean C to C+.
C is, I think, where I'm willing. C+ actually. I think it's got enough upside. You get to do the transform.
It's not like you're not transforming this thing.
C+ is where I'm willing to land on it then.
Sweet.
Next up, Dreg Recycler. 1 and a black for a 2/2 Phyrexian Beast. You tap it, sack an artifact or creature. Each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. That is a role player if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, that seems like it could be a really big deal in the black deck that wants to be doing that, the black-red deck.
Yeah, the black-red deck. And like not for nothing, It is a Phyrexian. You do get to do that at instant speed. It's not nearly as useful as drawing 2 cards off of your instant when you want to recycle a creature that way. But if your opponent's going to kill one of your things anyway, you might as well drain them for 1.
Yeah, hey, look, it doesn't say sorcery speed like a lot of these other effects.
Yeah, C is about where I'm willing to go on it.
I like it. I'm going to say it's only one of those per turn, which is pretty slow. Which I'll go like C- on it because is it a 2-mana 2/2? Yeah,
it's a bear.
So I think I'm still going to say C-. Doesn't mean I don't like the card though. Anything C- or up, I think is probably playable.
Yeah.
All right, we got Final Flourish next. It's 1 and a black instant. It's a common. It's got Kicker.
Yeah, it's the only Kicker card in the set.
I'm in. I love Kicker. It says sacrifice an artifact or creature for the Kicker cost. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. For 2 mana, that's reasonable. We've seen it before. And if this spell was kicked, that creature gets a -6/-6 until end of turn instead.
You remember the card from original Dominaria that did this? Of course I do. And it was like
better.
It was legitimately one of the best removal spells at common at black. And this is literally a straight upgrade. Throw an artifact away to it. Get an extra -1/-1 out of the kicked mode.
That's right.
This is sweet. I think it's probably a C+. Like, you should probably play as many as you can get.
I think so too. Yeah. I think C+ is a good place for this.
It has its best home probably in the decks that have a bunch of random incubator tokens, but that's probably most of your black decks. So, loving it.
Yeah, I like that card a lot.
Gift of Completion is 1 and a black for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, incubate 3. Whenever a Phyrexian you control dies, surveil 1. It's another one of these weird enchantments that gives your Phyrexians a marginal bonus and incubates a large number, but doesn't give you access to that creature immediately.
If this is the format you can take turn 2 off, you can be swinging with a 3/3 on turn 3.
Mm-hmm.
And if your Phyrexians ever die, you just get to start churning through your library.
Yeah. Like, again, how many 2-drops have we really seen where you're like, I gotta have my blockers up immediately?
Right.
Like, not that many, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we haven't done Red and Green yet.
No, yeah.
Ones, but
I kind of like this card. I like how cheap it is for its effect.
Yeah.
It might be a little bit of a build around because it cares about Phyrexian stuff. That being said, man, build around C, I guess.
Yeah, the marginal effect really isn't that big a deal, I don't think. Like, a little bit of card selection is certainly nothing. Like, it's something to write home about, but it's also not, like, negligible, you know? Maybe build around C is fine.
Okay.
Like, I think you'll get enough random incubator tokens and stuff like that where you'll be able to trigger that effect on a reasonable basis. But again, can you afford to be that slow is the question.
I hope so.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Nezumi Informant. It's 1 and a black, rat rogue at common, and when it enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card. We've seen effects like this before. Do we like it though?
I usually actually really like it.
Okay.
Usually these kind of effects come up in sets where there's some sort of incentive to have a semi-disposable creature for cheap. And almost always that incentive is there's a black-red deck with the 1 black-red archetype that Wizards knows how to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's food for all the sacrifice payoffs that you could possibly want. It's not a terrible top deck unless your opponent's also in complete top deck mode. But like forcing cards out of your opponent's hand is usually decent. It doesn't necessarily have like in Kamigawa and Neon Dynasty, we had Virus Beetle, which had the additional thing that it was also an artifact creature, which was relevant for certain decks. This doesn't have any like extra hidden text like that. But it's still probably decent enough. Like I would put it at a C. I think I'm happy to play a couple of these guys.
Okay. I'll give it a C-. I feel like I keep doing that to you.
That's fine. But I'm the optimist.
I apparently. Yeah, I'll give it a C-.
All right. Next up, we've got Traumatic Revelation. 1 and a black for a sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a creature or battle card from among it. If you do, that player discards that card. If you don't, incubate 3.
Weird.
Yeah, we keep getting these weird, like, hey, do an effect, and if you screw it up, incubate for your troubles.
I still don't like it. I don't usually like looking at hand effects. I think at pre-release and sealed and stuff, they're a little bit more valuable.
Sure. Yeah, like Pilfer effects, I'm not usually super high on in limited either. Like, it's like the Nizumi we just looked at, except it's a worse top deck generally. I mean, like, maybe you get the incubate off of it, but like in that case,
it's not a maybe. You can just choose not to pick
like
a card.
you have a fail case there that essentially this is a 4-mana 3/3. But like, are you super thrilled about that? Not really. I don't know. C-.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Like, it's fine.
Well, C. Gosh, I'm gonna give it a D. I don't think I'm playing this card ever. So
fair enough.
Doesn't mean it's an F because I think it's got some cases where you can play it, but I don't think it's that good. Collective Nightmare is our next card. 2 and a black for an instant. It's an uncommon with Convoke. Target creature gets a -3/-3 till on the turn.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful. We love this type of effect. Convoke, making it even cheaper, is fantastic. C+.
C+, absolutely. I don't think I can justify any higher than that.
You don't have to.
But like, yeah, it's efficient removal. It's exactly what you want. It's the reason we play black. Next up, completed Huntmaster. 2 and a black for a 2/3 Phyrexian Elf Warrior. You can pay 1 and tap it and sacrifice another creature or artifact to incubate 3.
This is great. This card's really good. Trading in anything that's worse than a 3/3 on your board rocks. Yeah. I really like it.
Again, there's no sorcery speed rider on this or anything either. So you once again have the option to just like, your opponent wants to point a removal spell anywhere else. And even this works if your opponent pacifies one of your things and you want to play this and then a turn later eat your pacified creature and get that value. Like, I think this is another good reason to try to be in that black-red deck.
Agreed, absolutely. And you know what? If you need to keep looping it, it doesn't say non-token.
Yep.
So you can just keep, hey, I transform this into a 3/3. I eat the 3/3. I incubate 3. Just keep going over and over. It's pretty much it's only once per turn, but that can be enough in some of these decks. So I like that card a lot. I think a B-. This is going to be one of the big players in that black-red
It's kind of neat.
And Phyrexian as well.
With that enchantment we just looked at, where whenever one of your Phyrexians dies, because you could theoretically set up this really dumb loop where you incubate, make the thing of Phyrexian, eat it, make a new incubate token, get the death trigger, surveil 1. And it's probably not very good, but like...
It sounds fun.
Yeah. Sometimes all I want to do is just dirtle.
Yeah, right. All right, now moving on to this next one. Everyone's really sad about this. See an etched familiar, 2 and a black. Artifact creature, Phyrexian Fox. And when it dies, each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. This is a common. It's a 3/2. They Phyrexianized the cute little filigree familiar.
Yeah.
Super rude. Is this card good? It's a 3/2 for 3, which is a little underrated. When it dies, it drains for 2.
And it does have that Phyrexian creature type.
It does.
What that's worth.
Yeah, I think this is a standard
seems like
C-.
Seems like a C to me. It seems like this is kind of one of your bog standard 3-drops in this format. You're probably fine playing it. Dude, you're gonna love this next card. Are you ready for a Windrake with upside?
I am. I love Windrake with upside.
Flitting Gorilla.
That's not a gorilla, though. That's a fairy rogue.
Man, WotC really needs to up their game in terms of quality control. 2 and a black for a 2/2 flyer, fairy rogue. When it dies, each player mills 2. Then you may exile Flitting Gorilla. When you do, put target creature or battle card from your graveyard on the top of your library. This is probably the most middling upside, I would say. Because it has the same problem that 4/4 in blue had, right? Where it puts the thing on top of your library. And early on, you're probably not going to have a ton in your graveyard where you're like, I really need to put that 2-drop back on top of my library.
Yeah, but it's when it dies, right?
Yeah.
So, for one...
And you do mill, too. So, if you mill over a good card, you can just rebuy that instead.
Yeah, I actually kind of dig this card. I think it's a straight-up C.
Yeah, I think C is about where I would land with it as well, but just still lower than most of the Windrakes with upside we've seen so far.
You can chump this into bringing a creature back. A better one, probably. So I like it. Moving on to Glistening Deluge. It's 1 black sorcery at uncommon. All creatures get -1/-1 till end of turn. Creatures that are green and or white get an additional -2/-2 till end of turn. So -3/-3 for green and or white creatures, -1 for the rest. Sideboard. I don't
Very
like this at
sideboard.
-1/-1. I don't think it doesn't seem like there's a ton of X1s in this format.
Yeah.
The elementals don't seem super prolific, at least in blue. We might see
Yeah.
more of them in red. But not a lot of X1s in the format. So against heavy green and heavy white decks, and hopefully green and white, maybe I'm bringing this in, and it's a sideboard like C+, because picking off 2 creatures with it is good. Picking off any more with that is great. Picking off 1, it's just fine.
I think that out of the sideboard, this could go all the way up to a B. But it has very specific situations where it works. Because obviously 3 mana for -1/-1, so the whole board is not playable. Like, a lot of times we get this effect where it's just -2/-2 to everything, and that's like either fine or below fine. So -1/-1 is not where we want to be. And this effect is symmetrical. So black-green and black-white, while they do have a lot of incubator tokens that don't fit either color, might not necessarily be willing to put their own creatures in line. It's going to be hard to break the symmetry, which is always what you want to do with this sort of effect. But I think when this card is really good, when you're not really hitting your own creatures that hard, and when you're really like massacring some of these green-white X decks that have a lot of smaller creatures on the field, like this can really blow out your opponent.
Absolutely.
So like I said, I think like if the stars align, B- is absolutely a thing that this is capable of. It maybe even B. But I think you got to be realistic about when those stars are aligning and when you're supposed to bring this card in.
Oh, well, I hope they align for you, because I'm gonna need to see you do it before I try it. But it doesn't seem bad.
Guess I don't think it's a matter of like, oh, this is a weird situation that needs to be set up. Like if I'm in a black-red deck against a green-white deck, or a blue-white deck for that matter, like you wipe all their night tokens and a bunch of their other little things. Like -3/-3 is going to wipe most of those decks boards, right?
Yeah.
So I feel good about that.
Okay.
Next up, Ichor Shade. 2 and a black for a 2/3 Phyrexian Shade at common. At the beginning of your end step, if an artifact or creature was put into a graveyard from the battlefield this turn, put a 1/1 counter on it.
I don't really like these cards. I feel like they're slow, and this seems to be the set that's trying to promise like, no, this is gonna happen a bunch.
Yeah.
But it's hard to even then it's kind of hard to rank this. I like that it's 3 mana.
Yeah, so we had like that Gitaxian Infiltrator, I think, the 2/1 for 2 in Brothers War that got a 1/1 counter at the end of your turn if you sacked something. And like that was never a good card, but occasionally it would still kill me. But it was fairly rare. I think that this is a little bit better than that because it gives you a better blocker up front, even though it is 1 more mana. And because we have more things that we're willing to get rid of on the regular. And I do think the black-red deck's just going to be better than it has been in a bit.
So like C-.
I still think C- is probably correct for it. Like I'm not excited to put this card in my deck, especially because I think the 3 mana slot in that deck already has a lot of really good cards in it.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I think so too. All right. Next up is Render Inert. 2 and a black for a sorcery at uncommon. Remove up to 5 counters from target permanent. Draw a card. Flip a battle. Draw a card. This is weird. This is really weird. And is it... Gosh, I mean, if you're not playing any battles, obviously you're not playing this card. But if you've got a really influential battle, like I'm not playing this for one of the uncommon battles probably, but like if I have one of the rare and mythic battles that are really strong on the backside, I might play this card.
I can see a couple of the uncommon battles being worth having this in your deck, but I think you need to have a lot. Like you can't say I have one good battle in my deck and this thing is in my Render Inert's also in my deck because I might draw that one card at the same time. That's a very easy trap for players to fall into. Make sure you have redundancy if you're going to run this kind of thing. Outside of that, I mean,
it's like a sideboard D. Like it's gonna do the thing, but like maybe.
I think
if you don't draw any battles, then what does it do?
So I think build around, I would put it as a C, because if you have enough battles, which I think will be possible some amount of the time, then I think that because a lot of these battles do have decent backsides that give you creatures. In which case, it's basically a 3 mana creature that draws a card as it comes in, which is going to often be fine. If it's not that, Sideboard, I think it has very, very minor use cases against the green-white deck, maybe.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
If only because your signpost uncommon there is a 0/0 when it doesn't have counters on it. So if you kill that thing and draw a card, but that's a very specific interaction we're talking about. Maybe like sideboard D plus. Maybe higher if someone got away with like murdering, got multiple of that uncommon. But otherwise, like if you are not sideboarding this and you don't have the battles, this is an F.
Okay. I agree. All right, what's next?
Up next is Unseal the Necropolis. 2 and a black for an instant. Each player mills 3. Then you return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand.
I mean, I kind of like this. Returning 2 creature cards is kind of a lot. This is not a card that you play on turn 3. This is a card you play on like turn 8 or something.
Yeah.
Return the 2 best creatures that died, or maybe you hit something nice.
Yeah.
I'm playing 1, and it's probably like a D plus. It's got a high ceiling, of course.
So in some of the recent sets we've had like Urborg Repossession and Emergency Weld out of Dominaria and Brothers War. And those were like key commons for most black decks that had this similar kind of like regrow a creature effect. I think this is worse than both of those because I just don't think I'm not seeing the mill thing as really being that important, to be perfectly honest here.
Yeah.
I think blue-black as a deck in this format is probably going to get by mostly on just being like a decent little like control value deck. And maybe a couple of these other commons and uncommons will prove me wrong. But I don't really care a ton about the mill. Maybe it mills over 1 extra card on my side where I'm like, ooh, yeah, I'll be taking that. But otherwise, like, it's just, we've seen the 3 mana return 2 creatures thing before, and that's fine. C- is where I'm landing right now.
Okay, I'll stick with you on C-. This is one we've seen a bunch. Vanquish the Weak, 2 and a black, instant at common, destroy target creature with power 3 or less. Hard to trade this up in mana. But there are a few problem permanents here and there that are going to be power 3 or less.
Yeah.
You can play one of this in your main deck, I'd say, and then board it out if it's not relevant.
Yeah.
So it's like a D plus, C-, probably.
C- is probably where I would land. I think you have better options for removal, but sometimes you're going to have a hard time finding some of that removal, and you're going to have to audible into something like this. You don't want to fill your deck up with them, but they are serviceable. We've got Consuming Aetherborn, 3 and a black for a 2/2 Aetherborn vampire at common. Got backup 1 and lifelink.
Hey, give someone lifelink.
Hey.
I kind of hate that it's 4 mana, because even a 4 mana 3/3 lifelink's not good, which is what this thing can be at the floor. I like granting another creature lifelink, but without any other relevant creature types, this is like a D. Honestly,
yeah, D is about where I'm landing for this. This is a little bit sad for a common backup card in black, honestly. Like it doesn't do enough whichever mode you choose. It's not particularly efficient.
Yeah,
it doesn't have any relevant creature types.
If it was a 3/3, it would have been.
It's not even like, really in the right colors for this sort of effect.
No, so let's go with a D.
Yeah.
This is a card I'm going to cast a lot. Deadly Derision, 2 black instant at common. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Create a treasure token.
Sign me up.
Done. Yeah, that's a C+, right? It just like 4 mana is usually what we see these kind of effects at common.
Yeah.
And it puts you to 6 mana next turn, probably. If you play your lands, In limited, maybe you won't. But it puts you to 5 or 6 mana next turn, which is that's a big deal, honestly. And I like it.
Yeah, I'm definitely down to play a bunch of them.
They're gonna go early.
Yeah, take them early. Next up, Invasion of Eldraine. 3 and a black for a siege, 4 defense counters. When there's the battlefield, target opponent discards 2 cards. It's our Mind Rot variant for the set. And it flips into Prickle Fairies.
Yay!
A 2/2 flyer. It's a fairy. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if that player has 2 or fewer cards in hand, Prickle Fairies deals 2 damage to them.
Not into this at all, actually. I think this card stinks. 4 mana to have your opponent discard 2 cards is pretty tough. And then it flips into a Windrake with upside. Right? Like,
yeah.
I don't like this card. I'm gonna give it probably an F, honestly. I think this is my first F.
No, this can't. I don't think this could be an F. I think D is about where I'm willing to land on it. Because like Mind Rot effects usually land around D, and that's usually when they're like the 3-mana version, right? They're technically fine, but they're horrible top decks, and you're not adding anything to the board early. So if your opponent's pressuring you, then it's not going to be great. But I've certainly been the person who's cast a Mind Rot when things were relatively stable early, and my opponent's been like, really? And I'm like, yeah, get rid of the rest of your hand, jerk. But 4 mana makes it a lot harder to really get that value. And the upside here is, I mean, like, honestly, the upkeep trigger to shock them, that's not bad upside, honestly.
It's like a maybe shock them, though. Just stock a couple lands in your hand, and then this never activates ever again. So I don't know. I think this is unplayable, personally. Yeah, I'd like to see you prove me wrong.
D is where I'm currently sitting, but I'm really curious how exactly you expect me to prove that it's a D.
Play it against me.
Play it once and have it be middling, and you're like, you're right, that is a D.
Yeah. Okay. That would be good.
All right, we'll get there.
Moving on, we got a rat on a bike. Nezumi Freewheelers, 3 and a black. Rat Samurai at uncommon, 3/3 menace. When it enters the battlefield, each player mills 3 cards. Okay, listen, that's a good body.
Yeah.
Got evasion, and it does the mill thing, sure. And then 5 and a white to transform it
into
Hideous Flesh Wheeler. Ew, he became the motorcycle. Gross. He keeps menace, and whenever this creature transforms into Hideous Flesh Wheeler, put target permanent with mana value 2 or less from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. This is actually a rare time where I like that kind of effect. I usually don't, but I think in the black-white deck, you'll probably have something you can hit with this, and it's not like, oh my god, it's back, yes, but it's a little bit extra value, and I upgraded my creature.
Yeah, and you milled a couple of cards when it came in, right? So like,
oh, true. So it could even find one itself.
It could find something a little bit better. I'm still not like smitten with this card, but
I think it's like a C.
Yeah, C is about where I was thinking.
Okay.
Next up, Tenured Oilcaster, 3 and a black for a 2/4 Phyrexian Wizard at common. It's got Menace, which is a little bit weird on a 4 mana 2/4. But it gets +3/+0 as long as the opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. And when it attacks or blocks, each player mills a card.
That's what I want. That is what I want for this.
I wasn't sure. I was like,
no, I'm pointing at it because I'm excited.
Yeah, I think this is actually the payoff you want for the blue-black deck.
Yeah, because a 5/4 menace that's a real clock.
Yeah.
For your opponent. It's very hard to block. And also this thing says when it blocks, each player mills a card. So it is just able to defend you while you're building up those 8 cards in grave. And then when it's time, it just can attack as a 5/4 menace. This is a C+.
Yeah, C+ is what I'm thinking. You do get a little bit of value out of like your opponent might not know when exactly you're hitting 8 cards in their graveyard, right? Like they could be at 5 and be like, "Oh, I'm fine. I've got a couple of turns before enough cards end up there." And then you play Nezumi Freewheeler, and suddenly it's like, "Oh no, that's bad for me."
Yeah.
So I think it's sweet. I'm actually excited to try to get that card to work.
C+?
Yeah, C+ is where I'm landing on it.
Okay. We got Etched Host Doombringer next. 5 mana, it's 4 and a black. For Phyrexian Demon at common, it's a 3/5. And when it enters the battlefield, you choose 1. Target opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. Or choose target battle. If an opponent protects it, remove 3 defense counters from it. Otherwise, put 3 defense counters on it. Oh, wow. We are probably never putting defense counters on it. I don't think, unless it's one of the like ridiculously busted ones and they've been working hard to get it off the board.
Yeah, I don't think it's remotely what your default mode is on this thing, but it's nice to have it as an option. Like there'll be weird niche cases where you want that.
Yeah, and then the failsafe of it just drains you for 2. This is like a C- to me, I think. It's a 3/5 for 5, which is not, I guess blue-black kind of likes that. Where it's just like, hey, I'm just going to dirtle. It's a Phyrexian.
It's a Phyrexian. I mean, like, it's probably fine. Like, it's not necessarily... I think C- is about where I could get at. Unless it turns out that choosing a battle thing ends up being a lot better than I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, it doesn't kill any battles unless there's a rare one that has 3.
Yeah, but imagine you got through with a dumb little flyer once or twice.
I can imagine it. C-.
Yeah, C- is fine. Failed Conversion is 4 and a black For an enchantment aura, enchant creature. Creature gets -4/-4. When it dies, you surveil 2.
I like it.
It's probably a C is what I'm thinking. Like, it's not super effective removal, but like it gives you a little bit of upside. And even if you don't kill the thing, like you'll neutralize a lot of threats with it, right? Like their 5/5 becoming a 1/1 still means they only have a 1/1 on the ground.
Yeah,
or in the air or wherever it is.
I like this. It's a little bit much on the mana, but I'm definitely going to be casting this spell. C minus is probably where I would put
C
it.
minus I think is fine.
All right, now we're moving on to Invasion of Grotha,
you got it.
Wow. It's got 5 defense counters on it. It's a battle, as you can tell. And when it enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to any target, and you gain 3 life. I'm paying 5 for a lightning helix. I am. I really am. And it flips into... There it is. Grandmother Ravi Sanger. Very cool. 3/3 legendary creature, human wizard with flying. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a 1/1 counter on Grandmother Ravi Sanger and you gain 1 life. I like this card.
Yeah, I think actually, because it's not super efficient removal on the front side, but it's still decent for what it is. And I really like this little bonus of getting Grandmother Ravi Sanger.
Yeah,
for actually defeating the battle. Like, this is the kind of... Do you think this is where we play that card that removes counters and draws you a card?
It definitely could be.
If you get, like, this plus another battle or
honestly, because you can have more than one battle, like, of the same name on board at a time, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to playing, like, 1 or 2 of these and then having one of those cards in my deck. You probably want another battle or 2 as well at that point, but... yeah, this is a great card.
C+?
I think C+ is pretty reasonable for it.
I do want to point out, as long as we're talking about art every once in a while, I love the Grandmother Ravi Sanger art. She's just living her best life, 100%. She's got a Phyrexian by the neck in the back, and she's just kind of cackling like, who knows what's been going on old Grotha for the last forever, but she's living. And how can you be upset with that? You
I'm
know?
not.
Let's see. What do we got here? Merciless Repurposing. 4 black for an instant. Exile target creature. Incubate 3. This is getting expensive for removal, but it is super unconditional and leaves you a body behind.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I'm playing 1. You can't play more than 1 of these. So I think a C is very reasonable. It's a little bit expensive, so if the format winds up being a little faster, this isn't going to be playable.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the next card. I really like this one. Phyrexian Gargantua is back. 4 black for Phyrexian Horror at uncommon. It's a 4/4, and when it enters a battlefield, you draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. That's great. That's super good. You know, 6 mana for a 4/4 body isn't that great, but it replaces itself and then 1.
Yeah.
Sure, you got to lose 2 life, but life's a resource. Who cares?
Yeah. I would think... I'm trying to think, because, like, Phyrexian, the one that was in Dominaria United, for that, I can't believe
Rager?
I don't know that. Rager. Rager was very good in Dominaria United. Scrapwork Rager in Brothers War wasn't that great. It was fine, but it just didn't really sync up the same way. This, I feel like, probably is closer to Rager than Scrapwork was. Like, it's not a great body for at this point in the game. And the life loss will not be negligible sometimes, but honestly, it's pretty good. Like, it's going to refill your hand. It's going to put a relevant body on the board. It's got the relevant creature type. Do you think it goes higher than C?
No. No, I don't. But I think it's a very solid C that might be able to, it might go higher than that.
Well, I think this is part of the way that you can tell that players are limited players is when you see these like super borderline C uncommons and commons, and they're like, hell yeah, this is what I want to do.
My friends are mostly commander players, so I'll send the common and uncommon spoilers in our chat, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this, Phyrexian Gargantua. They're like, the card stinks. I'm like, not for me, though.
Yeah. Last up in black. Gloomfang Mauler. 5 black for a 5/5 Nightmare common. It's got Swamp Cycling for 2. Backup 2. And Menace.
Card's awesome.
Love it. I love all of this cycle so far. I still think it's either a C or a C+. This one is 7 mana, which is a little higher than the other ones we've seen so far. But like the backup on this is also super relevant. And if you don't put the backup counters on something else, this is a 7 mana, 7/7 menace.
Yeah, this card's
like
super duper good.
That's a big deal on the board.
Yeah, I think it's a C+. Honestly, almost closing in on a B-.
Really?
As long as we're allowed to play 7-drops in this format, this is a difficult thing to get around.
Yeah.
And you can play as many of them as you want in your deck because they just cycle out for swamps.
Right.
So
yeah, I dig it.
It does. That's the fact of a 7-mana card not punishing you for having it in your deck if you draw it early.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by The Metagaming. If you're looking to pick up some new sealed product for your kitchen table draft or need some singles for a new constructed deck you might be putting together, they've got you covered. You can even pick up all your Magic the Gathering accessories, including sleeves, dice, playmats, binders, you name it.
Yeah, and they also have an amazing community of Magic players, not only for Draft and Limited, but Commander, Modern, Pioneer, and even Standard?
Does anyone actually play Standard anymore?
I have no clue. I don't.
Anyway, if you're local to Long Island, New York, and you're looking for an amazing community of Magic players, come on down. We do drafts every Sunday, and you can come draft with me.
And me. Please. And if you want to pick up any gear from the meta, just check out the link down below. You can also check out their event schedule if you're local. Use the code POD5P at checkout to get 5% off your order.
Alrighty, you ready for red?
I'm so ready for red.
All right, let's see if the computer's ready for red. It is ready for red.
All right, we got Aki Scrap Chomper first. Yum, yum, yum. It's a Phyrexian Goblin, 1 red. It's a common. It's a 1/1, and you pay 1 and a red, tap, and sacrifice an artifact or land to draw a card. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. What artifacts are we super making in red? Do we have a lot of incubate here?
We got some incubate.
Okay, sure. But
again, black-red deck is literally all about that kind of thing.
I guess. Well, wasn't there a card a while ago? It was a goblin as well that you could toss your lands away to draw cards. This is a weird one because a 1-drop that is just like, hey, later in the game when you have a ton of lands, you could just cycle them out to draw a card pretty much.
Yeah, this one, I mean, bad, like...
But it's weird. Hard to judge.
I feel like there's more consistent sack outlets in this format. I think that's the biggest strike against this thing. So, like, if I'm trying to play that deck that's recycling a bunch of little artifacts and creatures over and over, or lands in this case, like, this isn't my first pick for what I choose to do with that.
No. I imagine getting this last kind of often.
D plus C minus?
I think D plus is probably where I'm going to go because it does something. But it's not great.
Okay.
What about, oh my god, what is that name?
That is the Beamtown Beatstick. Single red mana for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and menace. And when it deals combat damage to a player or battle, create a treasure token. Equips for 2.
I like menace. I like giving menace. And I like getting treasure tokens. This one actually seems playable because it gives evasion.
Yeah, this really I don't think is nearly the worst of this kind of effect that we've seen before. And it has the upside that later on, once you get big creatures, they can suddenly become gigantic problems because you're giving them menace.
Yeah.
That said, again, you probably run one of them. C- is probably what I'm thinking.
Yeah, D plus C-. I want to see how the treasure token creation plays out. Because it's interesting. But it's nice and cheap, which is what we like for equipment.
For sure.
So next up, we got Coming in Hot. It's an instant at common. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. Scry 1. It's a kill spell, right? You're supposed to be killing their creature with it.
Yeah.
Destroy target attacking creature with power. It's like you'd have to go through a lot of hoops to like write out what they want you to do with it on a card.
Yourself up for the 2-for-1 or whatever.
Exactly.
But sometimes you got them.
Yeah, so it's like a D. There's cases where you're going to be playing this card, but they're not super relevant, I don't think.
Yeah, it's totally like not embarrassing if you have to play one, but I don't really want to play many of them. Next, we got Lithomantic Barrage. Single red for a sorcery. Can't be countered. Deals 1 damage to target creature or planeswalker. It deals 5 damage instead if that target is white and or blue.
It's sideboard, right? I mean, against the white and blue deck, it's a no-brainer. You bring this in. It's super cheap. It's super good.
Yeah.
You're not playing it if it's just dealing 1 damage, though.
Yeah,
so
absolutely not.
I'm not main decking this. If I see my opponent's got... Honestly, can you bring it in on the white-green deck? No, right? Because it's dead against half their creatures.
It's not dead against half their... I mean, like, against the green creatures, if they're not white. If there's enough, like, high value white and or blue creatures, that's really the thing, right? Like, a blue X or white X deck that happens to have high value cards of those colors is important. Plus, we do have a higher multicolor component than normal here. So, like, some of the bigger bombs might happen to be blue or white. That said, it's still sideboard material. You'll know when you want it, I think.
Yeah.
Sideboard...
I mean, it's like...
Sideboard C+, honestly.
Yeah, it trades up really high.
It does. And out of the sideboard... Otherwise, it's an F.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
Don't worry about the can't be countered parts. It's literally not relevant.
True. All right, moving on to another equipment, Mirren Bane Splitter. This one's got flash. It's one red equipment at common. It's got flash. When it enters the battlefield, you attach it to target creature you control, and it gives it +2/+0. No, I'm not in for this. Equip 3 is even a little bit too much for this kind of thing. And you're at best, you're just trading your creature for theirs, pretty much. So I don't like it at all.
What if you have the 1/3 double strike for free, Nick?
Then I like it. Then I kind of like it.
Is that the one place where this is okay?
Yeah.
Actually, I think there's one other place, but we got to get to the Multiverse Legends first.
Oh boy.
Otherwise, I think this is like the majority of the time a D-. I really don't care for it.
Yeah, agreed. For sure.
Burning Sun's Fury. 1 in a red for an instant with Convoke. Up to 2 target creatures get +2/+0 and haste until end of turn. If this didn't have Convoke, it would be straight trash.
Yeah, and even with Convoke, it's not super good.
The one thing that makes me think that it's okay, you have a couple of creatures on board, and you play your big thing, and it uses up all your mana, but you still get to convoke those creatures to play your 2 mana spell. Give that thing haste plus another thing. But even then, you're still not really getting a full card's worth out of this.
No, yeah.
So unless you have a deck where you can really get that like aggro-y finish, then I don't like this. And I don't think that deck's necessarily real.
It's the 25th card in my aggro deck.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. So
yeah.
I definitely think this is like a D-.
Yeah, I think this is another D-.
We got to get a combat trick that gives toughness.
Yeah.
Then I'll be excited. All right, coming up next, we got Furnace Gremlin, 1 in a red for Phyrexian Gremlin at uncommon. It's a 1/2, and it's got a little fire breathing. 1 in a red to give it +1/+0 till end of turn. And when it dies, incubate X, where X is its power. That's interesting.
Yeah.
This guy, I think that it's understated for playing it on turn 2.
Yeah.
I think that, cards like this, you just say, hey, I'm going to attack. And as long as you have the mana, your opponent's going to have a pretty tough time saying, oh, I want to block it. Oh, I don't.
Yeah, threat of activation is usually a big part of the equation for a card like this. But threat of activation is both a little higher and lower than normal with this. Because your opponent does have to say, if I block this while it has a whole bunch of power, am I willing to give them that incubate X? But at the same time, you're just not increasing the power by all that much by doing your fire breathing here. It's not like Ember Eye Wolf, I think, out of Shadows.
Yeah.
That was hasty and also the fire breathing gave it +2/+0. That thing was a problem. You had to really say, am I willing to take that much damage / am I willing to trade with a literal 5 toughness creature? This thing's going to take a while. That said, it probably works fairly well with anything that can pump up its power. I just don't know that there's a ton of ways to do that aren't straight card disadvantage.
Yeah, so I think this is like a D, probably.
Yeah.
You're gonna play it once maybe in your career. It's okay.
All right. Invasion of Mercadia. 1 in a red for a siege. When it enters the battlefield, you may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards.
Oh, draw 2 cards. Okay.
Yeah, it's a we get this effect at 1 in a red all the time. Thrill possibility type effect. Tormenting Voice is the one I was thinking of at sorcery speed. It flips into Chiron Flamewright, which is a 3/3 goblin spell shaper. We don't see those very often these days. For 2 in a red and tap and discard a card, create 2 1/1 blue and red elemental tokens. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and haste until end of turn.
So the front side I didn't like. This side I really like. I wish this was just a card.
Yeah.
Because this is really cool.
Yeah, I think the front side is, again, one of those, like, 24th type of cards, right? Like, it doesn't really do anything special for you. Like, it's just a little bit of card filtering. Because you spent a card to get one of your card draws, and you're discarding a card to get the other card draw. That's just card selection. And you do have to put some work into flipping the battle, but again, red-green is about battles in this format. So maybe they especially have a little bit of an easier time flipping this thing over. And once you do, you have a real threat on this side. Start pitching lands later on and getting hasty 2/1s that buff, and you buff the rest of the board every time you do it.
Yeah, I think this card's really neat. Hard to say how often we'll be flipping it, but in red, and especially red-green, it seems like they do a pretty decent job at that.
Yeah.
I want to give it like a C.
Yeah,
you know, it's so hard with these battles, but I think I have high hopes for the Spell Shaper. Now this is a card I'm excited for. Kenra Spell Spear, 1 and a red, Jackal Warrior at uncommon. It's a 2/2 with Trample and Prowess. One of my favorite abilities. And you can pay 3 and a Phyrexian blue to transform it into Gitaxian Spellstalker. It's a 3/3 Trample. It's Phyrexian Jackal with Trample, Ward 2, Prowess.
Each instance of Prowess triggers separately.
So strange. I mean, I think I knew that was a thing, but like they've never actually written it on a card before.
Yeah, the only time we have ever come close, there was like a blue-white uncommon dragon in Dragons of Tarkir that instead of having like Prowess twice written on it, had when you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +2/+2.
Yeah.
And like that's literally the only thing that we've had that's like kind of similar.
So this card's like solid, right?
Yeah, I think I like it. I mean, the front is already pretty efficient, and the back is also pretty efficient. It's kind of the best of both worlds. A lot of times on these flip cards, you either have an efficient front and an but okay back, or you have an back front and like a good back that you flip to. This kind of just is good on both sides.
It's so hard to block.
Yeah. And again, we have battles, which also trigger Prowess in this set.
Oh, wow, they totally do.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's hard to block. It's hard to remove.
Let's give it a B. Why not? We haven't given anything a B in a while.
Yeah, you know what? We have to be fair and spread out the grades a little bit more evenly, right? We haven't done a B in a while, so it's only fair that we give something a B.
Maybe our standards are too high.
Yeah.
Who knows? What do we got next?
Next is Pyretic Prankster. 1 and a red for a 2/1 devil. At common, for 3 and a Phyrexian black, you get to transform it into Glistening Goremonger. That's cool.
Okay.
3/2 Phyrexian devil with when it dies, each opponent sacks an artifact or creature.
How much did it cost on the front? 2?
2. Yeah, it's a 2-drop.
It's the 2/1. It's got decent power, and then it flips into a 3/2 that like is gonna pick something off, even if it's an incubator.
Yeah, I'm not super impressed with it.
Yeah, it's like a D, I think.
Yeah,
I'm not taking this very highly.
Yeah, I'm about fine with that.
All right, Row's Reinforcements is a card I'm really excited for. First of all, incredible art. I love those little elemental dudes. 1 and a red sorcery at common. Create 2 1/1 blue and red elemental creature tokens. This is the card that your Convoke deck really wants.
See?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's just, again, one of those kind of bread and butter cards. It's going to make a couple bodies. It will work well for Convoke, especially. It's also fodder for the black-red deck.
True. Yeah, look at that.
And it's prowess for your Gitaxian Spellstalker.
Holy crud.
Yeah. So
C+.
No, I think I'm really happy to play a couple copies of that for sure, though.
Me too.
Just watch out for the person that's playing the 1 black, give everything -1/-1. Thrashing Frontliner, 1 and a red for a 2/2 Phyrexian Viashino. It's a trampler at common, and when it attacks a battle, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So that's part of the equation for red-green getting into dealing more damage to battles more effectively. As a 2/2 trample for 2, without worrying about the battle part, that's probably a C, maybe a C-.
I think it's a C-.
With the part that it gets a little bit of a buff attacking a battle, it's going to be harder for your opponents to effectively block it when you do want to try to get your battles online. Which, again, I think it really remains to be seen how important that is and how much the red-green deck specifically comes together. I'm fine giving this a C for now. I don't think that it's going to go high enough or low enough in either direction where I feel like changing that.
I'm okay with that as well. All right, next up we got Trailblazing Historian, 1 and a red, Human Shaman at common. Nice rhyme.
Bars.
It's a 1/3 with haste, and you can tap it to give another target creature haste till end of turn. These effects are always a little lackluster, usually. But there's a lot of big like creatures in this set, and giving them haste, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I'd give this like a D+.
C- is what I was thinking, but like again, kind of in the same realm. It's fine. I don't think you need to prioritize them.
Okay.
Volcanic Spite. 1 in a red for an instant. Deals 3 damage to target creature, planeswalker, or battle. You may put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. If you do, draw a card.
We've seen something very close to this before. It had an eyeball on it. I don't
Fire
remember
Prophecy, I believe, out of Ikoria.
I think that you're correct.
I think the only difference is that this can hit a battle.
True. This is premier removal for red. 3 damage is just a great rate at 2 mana. It's awesome. At 3 mana, it's awesome. Even at 4 mana, it's still usually pretty good.
Yeah.
And 1 mana, it's pretty absurd. But yeah, I like this card a lot, and the fact that you could toss something that's not useful to the bottom to draw a card. Yeah, definitely like it. I think this is like C+ level removal.
Yeah, C+ for sure.
All right. Moving on to Ren's Resolve, 1 and a red sorcery at common. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you can play those cards.
So this is a functional reprint of Reckless Impulse from Crimson Vow. And that card has quickly proven itself to be really good.
So then this one's probably really good?
Yeah. I mean, like, I think in Limited, you probably struggle a little bit more often to get the value you need out of this, right? Like, getting both cards out of exile is not a guarantee in Limited. Your range of mana values is going to be fairly large in most decks. A lot of the deal, like, Reckless Impulse has actually slowly been creeping up in Legacy play because Expressive Iteration got banned.
Wow.
And I don't think that this is nearly as good in Limited as it is in Legacy. But I think it's probably still a solid little draw spell. C- is probably where I land on it.
Okay.
Okay with C for now.
I'll hit it with a C as well.
All right. You were looking for this earlier, I believe. Furnace Reigns. 2 in a red for a sorcery at uncommon. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap it. Gains haste until end of turn. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or a battle, create a treasure token.
It leaves, but if you can't sacrifice it, and even if you do, it leaves something behind.
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's cool because they're usually not going to block it. They don't want to kill it, and they don't want one of their creatures to die. Still, they'll just eat it. Yeah, I think this is a really good version of Act of Treason. And this is in a set where it is really relevant. I don't like that it's an uncommon. I think that's a little scary, but maybe they were worried that we would be doing it too much if it was at common.
Yeah, I think that's a concession to the sacrifice outlets in the set being strong enough to warrant it.
Yeah, but
because I think they had like a similar. I think they had in AFR, the D&D standard set, the red-black deck in that format was like wildly too good, and part of that was because they had the Act of Treason at common with really good sack outlets. So I think they're trying to avoid that. Also keep in mind sideboarding this in some red decks. Occasionally your opponent's going to have like, I don't know, a Galta and Mavrid, a 7 mana 12x trample. And like, listen, I've been on the wrong side of Act of Treason on my Gate Colossus and Ravnica Allegiance. You can really hurt someone like spiritually by doing that kind of thing. So keep it in mind in your sideboard. Out of the sideboard, I think if you have really juicy targets, it's still probably only like a D or a D+. And if you're in the black-red deck specifically, it's probably like a C or a C+. And otherwise, I think you're supposed to avoid this kind of card still. If you don't have, you don't have one of those specific reasons to play an Act of Treason effect, it's an F. Pretend it's not there.
Okay, yeah, I'm on board with you as well. Next up, we got Hanger Scrounger. It's 2 and a red for a Dwarf Pilot at common. It's a 2/1 with backup 1. And whenever this creature becomes tapped, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Hey, I mean, it's a pretty weak attacker. You know, it's a 3/2 for 3 maximum. That when you attack, you pitch a card to draw 1. giving it to another one of your creatures, I don't hate either.
Yeah.
It feels like there's a lot of discard in the set, and that's probably trying to play into blue-black's thing.
Yeah.
But I don't love this at all. I think it's like probably like a D+.
I mean, red-white is also the backup deck, right?
Yeah.
So it cares a little bit more about this than normal. If you played the red-white uncommon, curve into this, swing for 4.
Oh, sure. I mean,
like, there's enough payoffs, I think, where you can probably justify in the red-white deck, but outside of that, I probably am not huge on this card. It's like maybe a D+ outside of that context, and if you have enough reasons to be doing backup stuff, then like a C at best, probably not even.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's like let's put it at a C- then.
Sure, C- sounds good to me. Harried Artisan, 2 and a red for a 2/3 human artificer at uncommon. It's got haste. And for 3 and a white Phyrexian, you get to transform it into Phyrexian Skyflayer, a 3/4 Phyrexian artificer with flying and haste.
I remember this Greek tale where the guy's wings burnt and then he turned into a tooth monster or whatever. Mm-hmm. This card is 3 mana, 2/3 haste. That transforms into a flying 3/4.
Yeah, like a 2/3 haste for 3 is like probably a C- D+, right?
Yeah, and then it turns into a fast flyer.
Yeah,
I kind of dig it. I do.
Yeah, I think this has enough going on for it. And this also has the option, because a lot of these flip cards don't have haste, right? This one says, hey, you get to turn 6 and you want to have a hasty 3/4 as a top deck? Let's do it. So I think that this is probably pretty reasonable for a lot of the aggro-y red decks. You probably put it still around a C, is my guess. I could see it being slightly lower or higher depending on how poorly 2/3 ends up matching into certain parts of the format.
Yeah, I think that this has the potential to be a C+ just from what we've seen so far. Yeah. I dig it. Let's move on to Invasion of Regatha. At uncommon, it's a battle, 5 defense counters, and when it enters the battlefield, deals 4 damage to another target battle or opponent and 1 damage to up to 1 target creature. And it flips into Disciples of the Inferno. It's a prowess 4/4 human monk. If a non-creature source you control would deal damage to a creature, battle, or opponent, it deals that much +2 instead.
So here's that battle that likes battles.
Yeah.
The battle ends battles. Again, I think that means that it probably wants to be in the red-green deck. Prowess is probably actually kind of a nod to that as well. Because it'll trigger all of your other battles being played. And I mean, a non-creature source dealing 2 extra, like that's kind of big, right? Like you're not going to get to proc that a lot. You only have so many non-creature sources of damage. But that makes most numbers into reasonably large numbers.
Yeah.
And a 4/4 prowess is also like a big body.
Yeah, that is a big body. It's a very unpredictable body as well.
Yeah.
Which I think is very helpful.
Yeah.
I think the battles in red are going to be a little bit better because red's good at dealing with them, red-green especially. So let's call it, because it kills another target. It removes a battle. It can just kill your opponent outright, and it can pick off a small creature.
Yeah,
it's like a C, I think, right?
I think in the red-green deck specifically, it probably goes even higher. Like. Okay. C+ is what I want to put it at right now, and I could see it being a B- if things really line up. Just because it kind of does a decent amount for that deck. If you're not in that deck and you don't have a lot of battles lying around, then it's probably like pretty meaningfully worse. Like maybe even like a C- or D+ if you really don't have it. Like this is a more build around you one for sure. But I think that if you want this card, you'll be able to get it. And when you want this card, you'll be able to get a bunch of things that work with it. That's kind of how I'm feeling right now.
Okay. So what was your ranking on it?
I think build around C+.
Okay. I'll hop on that ship with you.
All right.
So like I said, like we've been saying, the battles are kind of hard to judge, but I'm excited to play with them soon. What's up next?
Karsus Depth Guard, 2 and a red for a 4/3 Vaashino warrior at common. Got Defender. And it can, as long as it has power 5 or greater, attack as though it didn't have defender. The joke is that you put a backup counter on it.
Which isn't super hard to do because it's only 3 mana. So next turn you just toss something on, you're attacking on turn 4 with a 5/4.
Yeah, with probably some other random ability.
I like it. I think it's pretty good. It obviously it needs something else to work. And if you don't draw any other backup creatures, for one, just play more of them probably.
Yeah.
But that's a big body on turn 4.
Yeah, you probably know when you want this, is my guess. None of the you do technically in the red deck, the blue-red deck, it's a defender that can convoke things. That blocks pretty dang good. But even that, I don't think is a great use case for this. I don't know. I think if you're in the red-white deck specifically, it's probably like a C. Because there will be times where you want to play it and it really just doesn't do a whole lot. But outside of that context, it's probably more like a D.
Okay. Moving on to Marauding Dreadship. That's a Phyrexian boat. Oh my god. It's a vehicle, 2 and a red at common. It's got haste. It's a 4/1. When it enters the battlefield, incubate 2, and it's got crew 2. So the thing that hatches can pretty much turn into the ship. I think that's kind of what's happening here. I kind of don't like this. 4/1 vehicle.
Random common vehicles don't usually do a whole lot for me.
No.
Granted, it is a 4/1 with haste, but it's a 4/1 with haste and no trample or anything like that. So I'm not really huge on it either. I keep saying that when we get to the legends, that there'll be a use case for some of this stuff, and you'll be so excited to see the use case for this stupid boat.
I'm excited.
But outside of the dumb context that I'm only foreshadowing right now, it's probably honestly a D-.
Yeah, I think you're right. D-.
Yeah, I'm not really
the haste thing. You play a 2 power creature on turn 2, and then just smash them with this on turn 3. Yeah. I mean, it's not bad. They're not going to want to trade for this probably. So it's definitely not bad. I think this is probably a little better than it looks, but not much.
Yeah. Also, it doesn't have the creature type Phyrexian. I think it's just a really screwed up boat.
Fair enough.
Searing Barb. 2 and a red for a sorcery. Deals 2 damage to any target. If it's a creature, it can't block this turn. Incubate 1.
3 mana for 2 damage.
Yeah, you like a 3 mana shock?
I kind of don't.
Yeah, that's kind of the point where you're okay, let's
because it's never going to trade up. It's hardly going to trade even. Incubate 1's not that big of a deal. I'm kind of off of this.
I think that every once in a while you see these really aggressive red decks will play the kind of cards that say this can't block this turn just as your finisher. And this does a little bit more and a little bit less at the same time. A lot of times it says everything can't block. This just says one thing can't block. Maybe you kill it for 2 damage. And the Incubate 1 is really, I think, mostly helpful in the context of black-red.
Yeah.
Because, again, another egg to feed to one of your guys.
I really think it's a D- or F, dude. It's rough.
D- is about where I'm landing on it. I don't think it's a complete tragedy if you end up having to play it, but I don't think you want to play it.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to.
Yeah.
Moving on to Redcap Heel Slasher. 3 and a red for a Goblin Rogue at common. It's a 2/3 with backup 1 and first strike. Pretty simple stuff there. Giving one of your other creatures first strike helps push them through. A +1/+1 counter makes first strike even better.
Yeah.
And then it leaves behind a first striking defender. And, anything with 2 toughness has to stop attacking until this thing is gone.
Yeah, or even if you just put the 1/1 counter on this thing, a 3/4 first striker for 4 is actually a very real body. That's hard to swing past.
Definitely.
It'll stop their Yargle all day.
Oh my god, it totally will. I'm gonna call that a what do you think about a C, maybe?
C is about what I was thinking, yeah. It's
okay.
I don't think that it's gonna win any awards, but you'll happily play it.
All right.
Scrappy Bruiser, 3 in a red for a 3/4 Raccoon Warrior at uncommon. When it attacks, up to 1 target attacking creature gets +2/+0 and trample until end of turn. Return that creature to its owner's hand at the end of combat.
Okay. So what's the joke, right? Do we get to return our battle and cast the front side again after it's a creature?
I think it's more of a backup kind of thing, to be honest.
What do you mean?
So,
for the backup ability. Sorry, I got you.
Yeah, especially on some of these backup creatures that are a little bit weaker when you give the 1/1 counter away. Being able to have them attack with 2/0 and trample will often make them into a much bigger threat. Like, let's pretend you have the Red Cap Heel Slasher and the Scrappy Bruiser out, which isn't necessarily a curve you're doing, but something to keep in mind. You give the 1/1 counter away with the Heel Slasher. You go to attacks, give the Heel Slasher +2/+0 and trample, meaning it's a 4/3 first strike trample. That's hard to block.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the turn, it does go back to your hand, but then you're going to be able to replay it, put another 1 counter somewhere, and give that thing first strike as well.
Yeah, okay. I see it now. I actually kind of like it.
It's a little bit fiddly and maybe not what red-white always wants to be doing or what any of the red book decks always want to be doing. I could see it being a real problem with some of the backup rares. I don't know if you've seen like some of the rares for this set.
Not really.
There's
so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, there's like a Baneslayer Angel backup card that gives the thing flying first strike.
Perfect.
Like whatever. Like Scrappy Bruiser can probably recycle some of those into some really, really dangerous combos, but without taking those into account, I mean, like it's also a May, right? You don't have to. It's up to 1 target creature. You don't have to give something.
If it gets the buff, it has to go back to your hand, though.
Yes, but you choose when you want to apply that buff. So you can either apply it when it's strategically relevant or when you're going to win by giving the thing trample anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That said, if you're not making use of it, it is a 3/4 for 4, which is no bueno. I still think that the upside here is high enough where I'm happy to call it a C or a C+.
Yeah,
C+ is what I'm leaning towards.
I think C+ is where I'm at as well. I think Scrappy Bruiser is pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, you're so lucky you get to do one of my favorite M15 cards.
It's funny because I was literally about to say the same exact thing. I'm so lucky. Stoke the Flames is back. I think the last time it was printed was literally M15.
Yep.
I loved this spell back in the day. 2 red, instant uncommon. It's got Convoke, and it deals 4 damage to any target. Boom.
Yeah.
Beautiful card. This is one of the best red removal spells, if not the best so far. And I'm gonna put it at a B-, man.
Yeah, B- is what I'm thinking. Yeah, this card
strong.
This card used to be a $5 uncommon.
Yeah, I remember. It was really good. It was
cool times.
Probably not gonna be that way anymore, but
absolutely not. But like I think for a lot of newer players, it might not be immediately obvious how strong this card is. Like, don't underestimate it. It will come out and deal 4 damage to something when you're not expecting it at all.
Yeah, and man, I'm so glad I get to probably cast this card again.
Yeah.
Super excited.
War Train Slashers, 3 in a red for 4/3 Wolverine Dinosaur. I bet you can't guess what plane that type line comes from. It's got Menace, and when it attacks a battle, double its power until end of turn.
There it is.
Yeah, it's another one of your red-green, I'm going to do the battles thing.
That's awesome.
And honestly, a 4/3 Menace for 4 is already kind of a real body.
Yeah,
it's definitely a little bit low on toughness, but like if your opponent commits to double blocking it, it's probably not a great block for them.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, I like this guy a lot. I think that's like a C+. 4/3 Menace for 4.
Yeah,
and it just kills battles pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I like this a lot. C+. Perfect. All right, Fearless Scald is next. It's 4 in a red for a Dwarf Berserker. Dwarf Berserker at uncommon. It's got backup 1. It's a 3/2 with double strike. Gifting someone double strike and a 1/1 counter. I like this a lot. And having a 3-power double striker, even for 5 afterwards, or possibly a 4/3 double striker. I think this is pretty good.
It's definitely at least a B, in my opinion.
Well, okay, so one thing to keep note, the removal spell that deals 3 damage kills it, even if you put the counter on it, though.
Yeah, it's vulnerable to a non-zero amount of removal, but like it's hard to not get some value out of this thing. Because like a 1/1 counter and double strike for even just a turn is a big attacker.
That's true.
And we've seen a lot of random creatures with weird, not even weird, but just like a lot of keywords floating around, right? We've seen lifelinkers, we've seen menace creatures, we've seen tramplers. And so a lot of things can really combine with that double strike to be massive problems.
I'm just excited to see some like first strike death touch stuff going on in the set. First strike or double strike death touch. Always fun. What is this next card? Oh my gosh.
Did you agree with B?
I do.
Fearless Skald?
I do.
Well, the next card is on Nake Javelineer. 4 and a red for a 5/4 Ogre Spirit at common. It has reach, and you can tap to deal 2 damage to target player or battle. Yow.
Is this what red wants to be doing? I mean, the games aren't ending super early, I don't think. Mm-hmm. So either, well, there's the dilemma again. Is it more worth it to just keep tapping, dealing damage to the player's face, or, proc a battle? Now I have something silly.
I think that'll be fairly context dependent. But, I mean, this gives you a decent amount of stats for 5. A 5/4 reach is not necessarily what you want to be doing these aggressive decks, but I feel like the red-green deck especially is going to be able to make use of that to a reasonable degree. It's not a terrible offensive body. And it will either threaten to flip battles pretty consistently, or the 2 damage will just kill your opponent. That's a big tap effect.
Yeah.
It is a lot of mana for what it does. It's not particularly resilient or anything, so I'm probably just going to call it a C regardless.
I think I'll call it a C as well, but I'm looking up for that card.
Yeah.
I think it has the opportunity to be better.
All right, we're almost done with red.
Ooh, what do we got now? Ramosian Greatsword is 4 and a red. It's an equipment and uncommon. It's got Convoke and gives +3/+1 and Trample. They want me to play equipment so bad.
They really do.
I still don't know if I'm playing this. That's a lot of stats.
Well, how much does it cost to equip it?
2.
2?
2's not bad. 2's not bad. I might play this.
Yeah, this seems strong enough for an equipment where I'm actually willing to put one of these in my deck.
Even still, though, is it better than a C-? Because combat tricks are good because they're surprises.
Yeah.
This is not a surprise. But then again, turning any 1/1 into a 4/2.
4/2 trample, yeah. Every creature you put this on is a big threat.
So what about a C? I have hopes for this card.
I can see it going even higher, but I'm okay to start it at a C for now.
Okay.
Furnace Host Charger is 5 and a red for a 5/5 Phyrexian Giant at common. It's got haste and mountain cycling for 2. This is going to be an important common.
This one's really
every
good.
cycling one.
Yep.
Every time your red opponent is going to be hitting 6, be ready because you might have a 5/5 coming at your face immediately after.
Yeah, that's rough. C+.
C+, yeah.
I think is a good place for it. I could see all these land cycling cards going up even higher, though, because they're good. Shatter of the Source is 5 and a red instant at common. It's got Convoke. Choose 1. Scatter the Source. Deals 6 damage to target creature, planeswalker, or battle. That kills any battle.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Or destroy target artifacts. Yeah, I mean, Convoke to deal 6 damage to a creature. Super duper. Love it.
Yeah.
Remove a battle. Sounds good to me. And the failsafe is destroy an artifact. Awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of times you get these expensive instant or sorcery removal spells that aren't really great on rate. And this technically isn't, but Convoke helps it a little bit. I still don't think you play more than 1 in a deck. It's probably a C.
Yeah, I mean,
fine enough.
I'm still into it though. I'm still playing this card. How about this next one?
I'm finishing off the red commons and uncommons with Sheevan Branchburner. 5 red for a 4/4 dragon at uncommon. It's got Convoke, Flying, and Haste.
This is awesome. Yep, definitely. Yeah. C+.
C+. Let's do it. Nice and easy. Not a whole lot to say about that one.
That's just a good card. Play a bunch of red and whatever other color cards that are cheap, and then Sheevan Branchburner comes down.